Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to another edition of Living World of Darkness, Rage Across New York. Our scene begins where the last time we saw Kachina making his way towards the pine forest away from his home sept. After the death of his father, he was given a cold reception, pardon the pun, and to that end, there was some contention on whether or not he would get an heirloom of his father's. As his father's funeral rite was to be done, Kachina was told that he couldn't participate. Perhaps out of scorn, perhaps out of something else. But his uncle handed him a packet to take to their medicine woman, their wise woman. And thus, he now walks through the pine forest. His companion, Louis, absconded off with several Wendigo that intercepted them on the way to the actual medicine woman herself. As Kachina approaches what he can only assume is the camp of the wise woman, there seems to be little more than a hut constructed of whale bones and her animal skins. A fire burns on the outside, and there seems to be many tanning racks and other adornments about the trees that make this place feel as though it's a very isolated but mystical place. Kachina walks up as he sees a woman sitting there, somewhat clad in unusual attire as far as the weather is concerned. Though you might notice that there is a certain lack of snow within a 20-meter radius around her hut and living space, while everything else is snow-covered.
Greetings, wise woman. Kachina has been asked to come and speak with you on matters. Would it be acceptable for Kachina to enter your camp and speak words with you this day?
The woman doesn't look up from her writings in what looks to be a leather-bound book. She simply nods in agreement. Come, sit, child. Let me look at you.
Kachina basically comes and sits down and has the packet in both his hands, and he sits in front of her and just holds it in his lap and gets a little bit comfortable and waits to see what's going to happen.
She looks at him as if measuring him, studying him. She takes her book and places it aside and reaches over top of the fire, which seems to almost bow away from her arms as she reaches across. Let me see this packet. What do you bring?
I do not know what it is inside, but Kachina was given this by his uncle and told to bring it to you. And he hands it over to her. Stairs.
She takes the package and places it upon her lap, undoing the leather binding and opening it. When she looks inside, she looks genuinely surprised, her somewhat stoic expression changing. How did you come by this?
As Kachina said, he does not know what is in the packet, only that Uncle, the elder, has given it to Kachina and told to bring it to you. And he kind of looks over to see what she's holding.
She reaches into the leather-bound packet and lifts up with both hands what looks to be a very old and weathered necklace bound by some form of leather or sinew. Small skulls and bones, on it beads, intricate weavings, but a small turtle shell of a newly hatched turtle is the centerpiece of this, and she looks at it, holding it up now in front of her face, letting it dangle in front of her.
I guess I'll roll intelligence and lore rituals.
Yeah, you can roll your Croatan lore.
Oh, okay. Dang. 4 successes.
You see in front of you what you would only can assume is something you've heard about before. You'd heard about relics of Middle Brother. You instantly recognize it as, from the turtle shell as an old artifact of the Croatan itself. You can see the symbol, the glyph of the Croatan carved into it, into the shell.
This is a great and noble treasure from our lost brothers, the Croatan. His eyes are slightly widened as well now. I see why you are surprised. Kachina is surprised as well.
There are so very few of these left, and I can understand why Rends the Ice did not want you to simply take this.
Ah, so Father had it before.
If I had to
Rends the Ice
guess,
is wise.
you have not been in the sept in many years. That much I know. He is... I would say that he is reluctant to let you take this away from us.
Kachina's body might be elsewhere, but mind and spirit and heart is always with his tribe. Kachina sends money back that he acquires in the weaver's place that he gets from the white men and try to help his tribe.
I see. I would only assume that he wants you to bear witness. All I can say is that I do not wish to part with this item either, but if your father passed it to you, he had a reason. But you simply cannot take it. That is, unless you can take it. And she waves her hand once over the turtle shell, and the glyph on it begins to glow. She holds it over top the fire, and the air around her seems to shift and warp slightly, as though something is happening to the air around her, as if something is changing. You can feel the gnosis in the air starting to pour off of her, and she looks Kachina dead in the eyes. They begin to glow with an icy blue coldness. Take it, if you can.
So Kachina slowly reaches over to see if maybe there's some sort of barrier or something that's preventing him from taking it. So he just kind of tries to reach over at first, like gingerly.
As your hand gets closer, you can feel the resonance off this item. You can feel the gnosis in mass amounts now pouring off of the wise woman, who is, to an easily assumed guess, a theurge like yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And as you reach and get your hands just to the point where you can clasp it, you can literally feel your fingers being pulled towards it, as if your fingers are being not necessarily drawn to contact, but being pulled into the item itself. And you notice that no matter how much you try, your fingers cannot pry themselves away. You feel this overwhelming attraction to it that just simply won't let you go, and you can literally feel your arms start to be pulled into it. You can visibly see your fingers warping in the air and being pulled through into what you can only assume is perhaps the Umbra.
All right. Not that Kachina thinks this, but let's see how far the rabbit hole goes, I guess. So Kachina's like, spirit quest, perhaps. Maybe the spirit of the item wants to talk to me. So he tries to push himself into what he thinks is the Umbra to maybe see if he should be talking to the spirit. So he kind of leans forward, going into this pull.
And indeed, you're pulled into this sort of vortex almost. Very odd feeling, a sensation that is, well, you're not quite accustomed to, I would say. And as you're drawn in, the world around you is obviously gone away. Until you're sitting in sort of a cool but temperate climate. You're no longer in the pine forest. You're somewhere that has a climate similar to that of a perhaps subtropical or perhaps a temperate climate. The air is damp, but it's cool. There's a slight fog rolling around. You're sitting in amongst pine trees and oak trees. You can smell maple leaves in the air. It seems like it might be early to late spring. Last chills of winter still holding to the air.
Hold on one sec, Vinny. I gotta tend to my kid. In 1 sec. You want some milk?
Meanwhile, while we're waiting, Kachina's surroundings are a bit more.
Okay.
Oh, welcome back. The one thing you can definitely tell is that the air around you, the aura of this world, you can literally feel the gnosis on the land, as though it was untouched, pure, one might say.
Alright, so I've been to the Deadlands of the Spirit Realm, and I've been to the Happy Hunting Grounds. This is different. It's not like old, like with dinosaurs and whatnot, and very large beasts. This is a different realm. Kachina thinks to himself. It's very nice. It's untouched, unspoiled, the way the lands are supposed to be. And he looks around as he's thinking this.
As he is thinking this, as he's looking, he'll notice that there are two individuals off amongst the trees away from him. They don't seem to pay him any mind. They simply look to be hunting.
Seeing that they're hunting and not wanting to ruin their hunt, Kachina will crouch down and walk slowly forward, trying to make little noise. Enough that once he gets closer to get their attention that, he's not sneaking up on them, but so that, whatever they are looking at or trying to hunt won't be startled by him. So he purposely scuffs his boot moccasin on the ground when he's about 10 feet away so that for sure they would hear it, but nothing else farther away that they would be hunting would be. And he waits to see if they look up at him or not, as he's looking around to see possibly what they are hunting as well, to make sure that he is not seen by it as he's ducking low.
There is very little in the way of reaction to them. One of them, one in the white shirt, seems to turn his head slightly, but as he moves, you can almost see a phantom-esque property about his body as he sort of wisps, looking about. As you get closer, you can almost feel an incorporeal nature about him. And if you have spirit lore, you can roll it.
I do. All the fun lores. Five.
You can tell that this is not a... These aren't spirits in the general sense. This is not a... That's not a flesh and blood person in front of you, but you probably already assumed that.
They're more like a memory of something that's transpired?
Yes. It seems, though, that these spirits are reenacting or remembering something that occurred. As you sit there and you wait, you notice that more individuals moving forth behind him, and then more, and then even more. You start to notice that there are literally thousands of individuals, some of them in Krinos form, you seem to almost see a wolf-like feature about them, a breed that you've never seen before. Certainly they have a pure blood or a pure breed to them that just is completely alien in terms of what you've expected. They are not Wendigo. Not much you can tell for sure. And when you see some of them with their war paint on their fur or on their markings, you can tell that this is members of the tribe of the Croatan. Many, many of them.
This is like a whole war band of them. More than that, like that many people? Yeah, this is serious business I'm watching. Just kind of boggling his brain as he's literally watching thousands of Croatan warriors in awe, kind of noticing their markings and whatnot and trying to remember them and whatnot. Burn their images into his brain, as it were. And then after he's looked them up and down and made sure he's remembering them, he'll turn to see what they are going to go do, because this is quite serious. This is a very important vision he's having.
You see off in the distance a clearing, an area of recently clear-cut trees. And you see... Well, you see what looks to be a wooden fort, almost. Small, Um, you notice the bodies of white men, wormcomers, strewn about. And as you look forth, the air around you seems to ripple and it feels cold. You feel an overwhelming sense of dread. You almost feel as though when you stare, you can see something moving in the sky. Something that draws dark clouds about it and drops rain down upon the trees that seems to almost sap the life out of them. This image that you see is truly, truly massive. Something that you couldn't even fathom. Something that if it were to appear in the skyline over Manhattan would make the buildings and the island itself look minuscule.
Now he's heard stories of this, but to actually see this foul beast, even an image of it, he truly begins to understand what they were up against. Like in New York currently, he has to deal with a portion of this, a small remnant compared to this massive blight.
You notice that if you look towards the back of these thousands of brave warriors, you see hundreds more individuals sitting and chanting, some of them dancing. You see them working magics of gnosis. You see spirits that have crossed over into the material realm. You see large turtle gafflings and incarna moving about as they seem to offer protection to this band of theurges, more than likely. As the warriors begin to move through the trees towards this clearing, just one pass of of a large tendril with a large mouth on the end of this creature's body, almost like an appendage of it, just sweeps down and knocks swaths of forests away, sending trees flying up into the air. You notice that the Krenos werewolves that are hit by this, some of them manage to leap on top of it, making small wounds with spears and glaives, and you see arrows flying. You see some of the more prominent looking warriors stand forth and they reach their hands to the heavens as spears of sunlight slants down into this arm. You see some of them enacting gifts that you've never seen before, pulling turtle shells over their bodies that almost are akin to a spiritual awakening of a gift. You see those that aren't so fortunate, even those that manage to bring up their defense. You watch those spirit shells shatter as their bodies are pummeled into pulp. You see the mouth of this appendage grab nearly a dozen Garou with a single grasp, pulling them into a giant maw, and then you can hear the screams as they're pulled into a sort of a tunnel of flesh filled with teeth, like a throat that is meant to just cut and rend. You see yet another appendage come down, and the same happening, the same occurrence just repeats itself as then two more after the second appear. A full four of these mouths, these armed appendages, these abominations just rip through the flesh of the Croatan, but they throw themselves against it regardless, even as hundreds of them are lost in single paths. For every 100, 200 more leap onto this creature, attacking it. You see the gift of Katonka Sonak's spear being used en masse by the tribal elders.
Kachina walks forward, almost like he would join them if he knew this was not a vision of the past, to be there for his brothers that gave themselves without thought, without qualm to sacrifice themselves to save all of them on these lands. And looking up in defiance at the four heads of this sky devil.
You're then drawn away from the battle towards the spirit circle. You can feel yourself being pulled in that direction, as if compelled to come close.
So he'll reluctantly turn away and walk towards where the pulling is, towards the spirit circle, to where they are calling down the Incarnas and the Jaglings and all these turtles. He's never seen so many turtles.
He likes turtles. You see an individual, a woman. She doesn't appear to be Garou, as far as you can tell, but she harkens close to a member, somebody that looks familiar, somebody that, while you've never seen them before, has a very similar features to cousins and uncles, your father. You can see in this individual, you can see that there is a small retinue of individuals, Uktena and Wendigo alike, standing arm in arm, looking filled with sorrow. As they stand there, you notice that this man that you see is likely one of your ancestors. You can see him cradling a child in his arm. Then you can see that the woman looks to be upset. She looks somber. And she takes from her neck a necklace and places it over the man's head and rests it there. And she speaks in a language that you don't know. You can't understand. But the emotional expressions on their face say enough to know that this individual is a member of the Croatan tribe, a theurge of some kind, and that the man is a Wendigo kinfolk. And what he holds in his arms is a child. They seem to say their last goodbyes as well as the other Wendigo and Uptina do, hugging and embracing their compatriots of Middle Brother as they walk away. And you seem to have no choice but to walk with them.
With reluctance, Kachina will heartedly follow them. Tears kind of starting to form in his eyes now as he watched them, because knowing they know that they're what they are walking to go do.
You see the trees start to clear out as the warriors are pushed back, slowly but surely. You see the large turtle Incarna steel themselves and offer a bulwark against the storm, or the Eater of Souls. And as you walk away, you come to a large expanse, an area, a foothill of the Blue Ridge Mountains, part of the Appalachian Range. And as you get to the top of it, to a rocky clearing, you can now see the battle. You can see truly the scope of what they're up against. This massive aspect, one of the heads of the triadic worm, laying waste to this area. You can see what was once the colony that historians speak about. You notice one of the members of your party, carving into a tree the word Croatan. And as you watch the Connor are eventually destroyed, and the spirit circle begins to glow brightly, wildly, as the rest of the Croatan, or what's left of them, move into the circle themselves. You see the spirits of the dead, of the fallen, pulling themselves into this circle as if brought to life by some mystical essence. You see ancestor spirits start to fly from the trees into this circle. And then you see the truly massive figure of the Eater of Souls spin out of the clouds until you can finally see its giant head for the first time clearly. Its four appendages smack down to the grounds on either four sides of the circle itself, and its massive mouth opening wide, wider and wider until it almost blots out the entire sky. And then it slams down upon the circle itself, taking a massive chunk of ground with it. And as it closes its mouth around it, you can feel the weeping and the cries of sorrow from the Uptena and Wendigo alike.
And at this point, Kachina can't stand anymore. He basically gets down on his knees and just staring out at. Now he's actually seen firsthand what he's only heard about tales, how the Croatan nobly sacrificed themselves to lock away once again the Eater of Souls, one of the four appendages.
You watch as a single light begins to emanate from the nearly closed mouth. You watch as the Uptena look up in wonder as the Eater of Souls basically gulps down this entirety of the Croatan into its gullet. And then you watch it call out in pain as a massive swath of light just emanates out from its skin, going through it as if though the glow is just too bright to contain. Even with it being inside this massive beast and being partially obscured by these dark clouds, it's still almost blinding, so much so that you can barely look at it. And then moments later, you hear almost a massive cry as though Gaia herself were shrieking out in anger as an explosion rips through the Eater of Souls, ripping it asunder, tearing out its gullet, tearing out its sides, ripping it open, this massive light wrapping around it as if it's being pulled in one direction as it bleeds, and gore of it seems to fly down onto the ground only to evaporate moments later as the light seems to eat away at it and keep it from corrupting and tainting the land. You hear its deafening cry that sounds as though 1,000 thunderbolts are cracking at once as it angrily is dragged back towards the Umbra. You can see a massive rift within the sky that seems to open well into the depths of the Umbra, all the way back to Malphys, into a realm not for you. And it is dragged there, screaming, howling in pain, echoing, and as the rend begins to coalesce back together and reform, you're only left with this bellowing echo of a howl of pain and anger that sort of reverberates across the land and doesn't seem to subside even for several minutes after it's gone.
Openly, tears down Kachina's face as he watches the wonders of the spirit and the Gaia and the sacrifice that the Croatan did to seal once again this horrid thing, the Eater of Souls. having glimpsed the tear between here and the other realms, the realms that are not for werewolves to go. And knowing that later Kachina will have to face a part of this, started resolutely being, well, I can do no less than the Croatan. I must be as brave as they are. I must stand up to this, even though it may cost me my life and the life of our kin, to make sure it does not once again rend this open, bring this forth. The worm has connived and tricked and deceived and taken over people to bring about this small portion so that it may release the rest, and this must not be allowed to happen. And he slowly stands back up and wipes the tears from his eyes with determination that he will not bend a knee to the worm, not one step, not 1 inch will he give.
You hear a slight echo as sounds weak as the world around you begins to fade away and you're left in sort of a, well, what almost feels like a void, almost like a expanse of limbo. And you hear a very weak voice as you see the pale and very translucent outline of the individual, the woman that had, well, given the turtle necklace to what you could only assume was her mate. And she stands there staring at you.
Kachina, I've seen you do these great things, he says, not knowing if she can hear her. Kachina is your distant relative. One day I hope too to be as proud and a brave a warrior as you have shown to be to me on this day and not long past. And he kind of tries to get closer if he can.
She reaches out and grasps the necklace that you had crafted yourself. And she looks at it. And she looks at you. And she simply blows upon it. And you notice a glyph of the Croatan burning itself into the necklace that you had crafted into the turtle shell. And upon doing so, you almost feel as though something breaking in your hands. And when you look down, you can see the old relic that was once your father's and your father's father's and so on and so forth break apart. And the essence within that begins to filter up and gives life to this glyph, and you can literally feel the nature of, well, a fetish being born around your neck.
Kachina will add his own gnosis to this to try to help in whatever way, the power of Gaia, so that, it might help, it might know him through this.
What you can feel is that as your own gnosis melds with your budding fetish is that you can feel the connection between the old relic, and you can feel that it is just a small piece, a part of this woman, this distant relative of yours. She had placed into the turtle necklace itself to watch over her family, her kin, even in death. You can feel as though as she does this, as she pours the essence from the necklace itself, you can feel her weakening, and you can literally see her features start to age. You can see that she becomes gaunt and pale. She looks tired as her eyes become, they droop slowly shut. And she leans against Kachina for a moment.
And he will try to, just embrace her to give them comfort and support in any way that he can, not knowing if he can do more than what he's currently doing, but thanking them at the same time.
She speaks in a language weakly as she stands back up, gathering her strength, what essence she has left. The language doesn't, at least to your ears, doesn't ring out true. You can't understand what she's saying, but within you, with this melding of two gnosises, you can understand what she's saying. And she looks at you. Little brother, the time for anger has passed. All too often you have been angry. The tribe has been angry, isolating ourselves and driving what is left of our pure blood to extinction. The time for infighting is over. The time for unity has come. And with that, she simply touches your forehead with the last ounce of strength before she seems to fall forward and, well, she seems to almost die in Kachina's arms.
No, ancestor, do not give up your whole spirit for this. At least be so that later I can contact you. Don't go. So much wisdom lost. So noble a sacrifice. You have given enough. He says as he's holding them.
She begins to disappear, fade away, or at least it seems that way for a moment, as she seems to, her essence begins to float away past this point of limbo. You notice that the world around you is starting to become more like the Umbra that you know well. And you can see that you're being separated from this area. But you do get a little glimpse, and I'll give you... You can roll your Gnosis.
Oh. Sigh. I'm going to spend a willpower as well. I really don't want to fail this. Oh god, I hate the dice. The dice hate me. I don't botch. Well, it depends what's the difficulty.
The difficulty was 4.
Oh, okay, so I get one success.
Normally I wouldn't let anybody spend a willpower point on a Gnosis roll, but as this is kind of important, I'll say that you manage to steel yourself as you feel something happening in that limbo. As you look past this slowly shrinking event horizon, you notice on the other side you can see what look to be pure lands of a spirit world. You can see in the distance thousands upon thousands of individuals standing there, obscured by a bright light. And you can see your ancestor walking towards them, finally, as if joining back with her family, her tribe, before the precipice of the limbo closes, sealed off forever.
That will bring much joy to him. And he, for the first time since this started, has actually smiled that she is now with the others and that they are together and that their souls were not lost in their great sacrifice and that in Gaia's embrace they are together.
And roll me an intelligence and primal urge.
Alright.
Difficulty 9.
Then I'm definitely going to call upon our extra primal urge from our totem.
Okay.
Uh, 4. Intelligence primal urge?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, then my 10s count as 2. So 7 successes.
With 7 successes, when you see this limbo closing, you notice that while it seems to be beyond your understanding or your power, you do feel as though that this barrier, this realm that they were locked into, the small glimpse of what you got to see, is far more transient than it ever has been in the past. And there might be some sliver of hope that what was done can be undone.
Okay. Ooh. Um, Kachina basically realizing this, that there might be some chance, will make sure that from now he will try his best, although he knows it will be hard to let go of the past grudges and hate, to try to work together with the others, and that maybe as he grows in knowledge and wisdom, he might be able to pass this barrier once again, to undo what has been done, to open a gateway, even though it may be small or require special rituals to that. Just like the Shadowlands, he may be able to step through and again speak with his ancestors and those that gave themselves in this great and noble deed to seal again the worm.
You're then left in the umbralscape of the forest, left there alone. A small pool of clear, reflective water nearby the hut is what looks to be your passage back into the Gaian realm.
Kachina will walk over to the pool and look around at even this place, which is pure, knowing that he will miss it when he has to depart, and then stare into the pool and
As you stare into the
slowly.
pool, you notice where you had been touched by this ancestor spirit. There is now a glyph upon your head of the Croatan. And you can add a dot of spirit heritage to yourself.
All right.
And now you get to become the envy of all the Uktena and Wendigo in the sept. And as you look at it, you can hear the words, the phrase that she spoke echo anytime that you share or look at it, reminding you that the time for hatred is over. And that it is now your task to let the wounds heal, and perhaps your notions of even the wormcomers are outdated, and that they are no more guilty for what occurred back then than the current members of the Wendigo and Uktena themselves. That this was something in the past, and that perhaps any key to healing what was done comes with leaving that hatred in the past, as hatred seems to be the domain of the worm itself.
Hmm.
And then as you stare through, you are brought back into the mundane world, and you can see the medicine or the wise woman sitting there with a broken relic in her hand, and you can feel the power of that essence pulsing within your crafted turtle necklace.
Wise woman, I have been on a journey and I have learned much today. Much wisdom has been given to me by the spirits. Thank you for the honor of being allowed to be here and take this journey. It has showed me many things, and there's, along with this journey that I've taken, much that I now see I have to do as well.
The lessons that you learned are not for me, they're for you. As a fellow theurge, I hope that you could take the wisdom imparted by whatever you have seen and bring it back to not only our tribe, not only to your sept, but the nation itself. Go forth, Kachina. We will likely never see each other again. And with that, she picks up the broken necklace. And as you look at her, make me a perception primal urge.
Two successes.
Well, you notice that there is a slight. When you look at her eyes, you seem almost as if you're looking at the eyes of your ancestor. And you realize the two of you are probably fairly closely related.
Wise woman, I would not say that we would not meet again. It's just, it may be a while before we are seen again.
Perhaps.
So it's not.
She doesn't say anything else. She actually kind of cuts you off as she turns and comes back into her hut, leaving you
And
there by yourself.
Kachina has many thoughts, and he will say a silent thanks to Gaia, and to the wise woman, and to spirits, and then will turn and start the journey back. Many things are now added on to the things he had to do before, but maybe he will do them slightly different than he was planning with this new wisdom.
And as Kachina heads back across the cold tundra, back towards his family sept, perhaps he's left with a new sense of purpose. Perhaps he can help old wounds heal, though it is likely a difficult task he has ahead of him. But for now, that is the end of this chapter of his experience, and I hope you all have enjoyed.